Welcome everybody to this amazing interview we are going to be doing here with the Vegan Organic Network. My name is Luke Scott III and it's my absolute privilege. I'm going to be interviewing Rebecca Knowles, who is the founding director of Farmers for Stock-Free Farming. And so Rebecca has got a degree in agriculture. She has loads of farming experience with sheep and beef, also arable, and then created the Farmers for Stock-Free Farming, which is based in Scotland, and it's a movement to help support and inspire farmers to transition out of livestock farming and help them to grow more organic plant-based foods. And in that way, helping them to create businesses that are actually sustainable and obviously better for the planet, better for the animals, and better for our health. And it's my absolute pleasure, Rebecca. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Luke. Great to be here.
So this is very exciting for me. I am on a mission to help the world learn more about vegan organic growing, or another name for that for people who don't know is stock-free farming, which basically means without using any animal products. And so, yeah, I'm completely on board with what you're doing. Do you want to just tell everybody a little bit about what your organization does and how it works?
Yeah, well, basically, Luke, we help farmers and crofters, help and support them to transition out of livestock farming into fairer, greener livelihoods. Scotland's in a pretty unique situation. You were talking a few minutes ago about transitioning to growing veganically. And a lot of agricultural land in Scotland is not really suitable for growing anything at all. So when we started Farmers for Stock-Free Farming, we really wanted to provide a just and fair transition for all farmers. And this began sort of back in 2018 when we were lobbying the Scottish government and really promoting the benefits of the shift to plant-based production and plant-based consumption. And we were in a particular meeting with a couple of MSPs, and one of them stopped us in our tracks and says, you know what, if you shift to a plant-based diet, you're going to put 60% of Scottish farmers out of business. And that really gave us sort of pause for thought. We knew he was wrong, but we knew we had to prove he was wrong. And so what was that MSP talking about? He was talking about the farmers who have land, and that's a majority of farmers in Scotland who have rough grazing and permanent pasture, and it's deemed unsuitable for growing crops, basically. So 77% of Scotland's agricultural land is rough grazing or permanent pasture. So we wanted to be able to help these farmers too, not just the minority of farmers in Scotland who can actually grow food, but the ones who can't. So out from that meeting, we developed Farmers for Stock-Free Farming, and we developed 3 roads to stock-free farming that basically provide a just transition for all farmers. So those 3 roads are, number 1, growing crops for human consumption, if you've got the kind of land that can support that. Number 2 is being funded, being paid to restore native ecosystems. So if you have land that's permanent pasture or rough grazing land, being paid essentially to farm carbon capture by helping the climax vegetation to return. So in Scotland, the climax vegetation is trees. So that's the second road, restoring native trees and ecosystems. And the third one is diversifying into non-traditional agricultural initiatives, such as those may be related to tourism or renewable energy, repurposing buildings, repurposing land. And according to the Scottish government, farmers that diversify in that way have on average incomes that are £20,000 a year higher than farmers that don't diversify. So we sort of have these 3 roads that all farmers can tap into, along with government support to actually do that. So absolutely. That was a long answer to your question.
No, absolutely amazing and super, super exciting. I had a farmer called Jay who was in the documentary called 73 Cows. He came and spoke at one of our events, and he used to be a livestock farmer. And now he's transitioning to growing organic fruits and vegetables. And I know he was really, really excited about it. And that film won a BAFTA, which is, incredible for best short film. So it's obviously something that is very doable. People get passionate about it. veganism is growing and growing and growing every year, thankfully. And more and more people are caring about the planet, caring about the health, caring about the animals, and also these farmers who are being exploited. And the government have them over a barrel, really, don't they? And it's a very difficult situation. So really looking forward to that. So anyone who's tuning in, if you know any farmers who might like this, share the link with them. If you're curious about this, I know you're going to have a really, really great time. And Rebecca, I believe you've got a video that you made which explains the whole concept of the Farmers for Stock-Free Farming and sheds a bit more light on it for anyone who is maybe curious about how this all works.
Yeah, that's right. And maybe I could just preface the video by saying the video that we're about to watch forms part of a survey that we've been doing, a survey of farmers and crofters in Scotland. So the survey's in 3 parts. You have a pre-video questionnaire, then they watch this video that we're about to watch, which is an informational video. And basically the video presents the challenges that farmers and crofters are currently facing, from climate change, changing subsidy system, our departure from the EU, and also changing consumer preferences. So the video outlines these challenges and then presents opportunities to thrive beyond these challenges. And then the questions that follow the video, the end of the questionnaire, basically asks farmers and crofters what they think about those opportunities, and would they be willing to shift out of livestock farming into one or more of these 3 rows, because we have some farmers and crofters doing all 3 of these things. So maybe we can chat more about that once we've watched the video.
Fantastic. And if you have any questions or comments as you're watching the video, do let us know and we'll make sure to get them to Rebecca straight after this.
Making a living from farming is not easy. According to the Scottish Government, agriculture is an industry dependent on support, with 85% of farm business income coming from subsidies. The average farm business loss from agricultural activities is £14,600. For sheep and beef farmers in less favoured areas, however, these losses are more acute, with the average farm making a loss of £27,400 a year without support. With our departure from the European Union, the future of rural payments is uncertain. Robin Dandy, Agricultural Business Advisory Partner with Johnson Carmichael, is encouraging farmers to review what percentage of their income is coming from subsidy and how low these subsidies could drop for their farms still to be viable and for financial commitments to be met. Many farmers and crofters will be wondering if and how they can survive. In addition to financial vulnerability, a shift in consumer preferences threatens to impact animal agriculture. A survey by supermarket giant Waitrose found that 1 in 3 people in the UK have stopped or reduced their meat consumption. The consumer research group Finder predict that 12 million Brits will be meat-free by the end of 2020. And Sainsbury's Future of Food report forecasts that by 2025, vegans and vegetarians will make up a quarter of the UK population. What are the reasons for these changes? The main factors seem to be concerns over the environment and climate change, factors related to human health, and a desire to uphold the rights and well-being of people and animals. New advances in biotechnology pose a further threat to the livestock industry. Independent think tank RethinkX describes an advancement in biotechnology that creates high-quality protein from microorganisms, fungi, algae, and protozoa. The report states that this protein will be superior to animal proteins in every way, quote, more nutritious, healthier, better tasting, and more convenient, with almost unimaginable variety, end quote. By 2030, these proteins are predicted to be 5 times cheaper than existing animal proteins, causing a drop in the demand for beef and dairy by 50%, with other livestock markets following suit. Whether we agree or disagree with the rationale behind these threats to our livelihoods is immaterial. The fact is, change is happening, and in order to survive, maybe even thrive, we must change too. At a recent Scottish Farm Advisory Service conference, the day's emphasis was on diversification, making the best of what you have and shaping business around change. We were reminded that in the midst of chaos and disruption lies opportunity. So let's explore some of those. The first opportunity to be explored is whether growing crops for human consumption is feasible on your land. Currently, almost half of Scottish cropland is used to grow animal feed. More than 50% of the cereals grown on Scottish farms and more than half of all vegetables go to livestock feed. A 2019 study by Harvard Law School showed that if all current UK cropland was used to grow crops for human consumption, it would more than provide for the calorific, protein and nutrient needs of every person in the UK. Many Scottish growers are already doing this. Stewart's of Tayside is a famous example of a farm that made the switch from sheep and cattle to growing crops for human consumption. This turned out to be the profitable move that financed the purchase of the farm and led to them becoming the largest independent soft fruit grower in Scotland. Kettle Produce is another hugely successful grower who currently partners with over 50 farmers throughout Scotland growing roots, brassicas and salad vegetables. It's not just about fruits and veggies. It's also about repurposing and expanding the potential of some of the other crops that we already grow, such as wheat and oats, and resurrecting some of the oldies, such as hemp and fava, in order to cash in on the expanding markets. Even in areas deemed unsuitable for crops, pioneering farmers are growing food. One crofter in Sutherland is expecting to harvest 12 kilos of hazelnuts from each of the 312 hardy hybrid hazelnut trees planted on her rough Highland croft. Another enterprising couple from Murray are growing mushrooms in a refurbished shipping container, using the waste heat from a Speyside distillery to create the microclimate for growing. Despite these innovative growers, however, it is argued that most of Scotland's agricultural land is not suitable for cropping and can therefore only be used for grazing cattle and sheep. Currently, 77% of Scotland's agricultural land is classed as rough grazing or permanent pasture. Aside from the economic dependence on subsidies and the decline in public demand for red meat, grazing ruminants is environmentally problematic. By food group, red meat, that's beef, lamb and pork, is the highest emitter of greenhouse gases per person in Scotland, with ruminant meat having environmental impacts 20 to 100 times greater than plant-based foods. This is problematic as the Scottish Government have pledged to be net zero by 2045. A recent study by the Centre for Innovation Excellence in Livestock showed that even if all known emission reduction strategies are implemented, by 2035 we will still only reach 19% of the goal for total agricultural emissions. Clearly, reducing greenhouse gas emissions is not enough. We need to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So the second opportunity for farmers and crofters lies in cashing in on the Scottish Government's ambitious climate goals. The climax vegetation of Scotland is trees. In other words, if we leave the land alone to regenerate, it will ultimately return to native forest. A 2019 study showed that if all rough grazing and permanent pasture in Scotland were to be left alone to re-wild, it would remove 1,052 million tonnes of CO2 from the atmosphere, the equivalent to offsetting a staggering 35.5 years of current Scottish CO2 emissions. Private corporations and individuals are looking to offset their carbon footprints by paying farmers and landowners to do this critical work. Additionally, the Scottish Government have pledged £64 million to forestry and 40 million to the Agricultural Transformation Programme, specifically to, quote, support farming's contribution to meeting Scotland's climate change ambitions, unquote. So let's make sure we get our share of that. The third opportunity lies in farmers and crofters diversifying into non-traditional agricultural activities. A 2019 Scottish Government report found that farmers who diversify into non-traditional farm use have incomes that average £19,600 per year higher than farmers who don't. Quite an incentive. Examples of a diversification include activities related to tourism, such as camping, glamping, or Airbnb, repurposing outbuildings to grow mushrooms, or renting them out for storage space or special events, and promoting the use of one's land for anything from glass sledging to music festivals. According to NFU Mutual's Diversification Report in 2020, 65% of farmers in England have already diversified with a total additional income of £740 million in 2018-19. To summarise, we have outlined 3 opportunities to survive and thrive the upcoming changes to our food system: growing crops for human consumption, rewilding permanent and rough grazing land, and diversifying into non-traditional agricultural activities. The questions that follow will ask for your views on these opportunities and give you the chance to add ideas of your own. Thanks for watching, and feel free to watch again.
Fantastic. So you wrote, directed, and produced the video. You didn't tell me you were a movie director.
Well, not really, but yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, the quality didn't quite come over there on StreamYard, but yeah, that's the video. Basically, if you want to watch it again, it is on our homepage, the homepage of our website, farmers.freefarming.org. So yeah. Yeah, and
Amazing.
it's been amazing. I've been actually spent a couple of weeks, about a week ago, going around Scotland doing the survey farm to farm, because we really want to get a random sample of farmers and crofters. So I've been going farm to farm, and the results of the survey have been astonishing. You know, there's a question in there where we ask farmers, you know, if support was in place, if the financial support was in place from the government, would you be willing on areas of your farm that are rough grazing or permanent pasture to shift out of livestock farming altogether, to farm carbon capture by helping native ecosystems to restore? And we've only had a couple of no's in response to that. Most farmers have said maybe or yes, which has been astonishing. So, and very encouraging, you know, that farmers are a lot more willing to change probably than we think they are. It's a big assumption when we think they always want to farm livestock. That's simply not true.
Yeah, the farmers I've spoken to as well, it's just almost a case of being trapped in that generational family business that's been passed down to them, and they just don't even know how to get started. It can seem overwhelming, can't it, to make that kind of a transition. So I know you have a whole team, right, that help farmers to transition.
Yeah, we're getting there. And just what you were saying right now, Luke, about farmers being trapped, it's not just tradition that has them trapped, it is the subsidy system itself. So, you know, with the Common Agricultural Policy, which we're still under in Scotland until 2024, we have these 3 payment regions for agriculture in Scotland. Payment region 1 is you have pretty good land and you can grow crops on that land. Payment region 2 and 3 is what we call less favoured areas. So if you're in a less favoured area with a poorer quality land, unless you have livestock, you won't get any subsidy at all. So that really ties farmers and crofters into having to have livestock, shall we say, just to be able to tap into the subsidy system. If you choose not to have livestock, either you're not getting subsidies or you have to have quite a costly environmental survey done on your farm that measures sort of the wildlife, the birds, the insects, the wildflowers, and you have to pay for that yourself. So farmers really are trapped in more way than one.
Yeah, we've got some comments as well. So we've got Bernie saying sending respect and support. Thank you very much. And we've got Giles who says go veganic, heal the planet. Yeah, Giles is amazing. Fantastic. So yeah, this subsidy system, it leaves farmers really, really vulnerable, doesn't it? Because they're at the mercy of the government. If they decide to stop the subsidies, then what happens? And so they are forced and pressured into doing things that they don't want to do. And I even just saw recently, because I do journalism, I have a news channel, and I saw farmers were being paid to destroy their crops. They were being paid like per acre to destroy their crops. I think for these farmers that there's not much money in farming nowadays the way it's done, is there? Like how do you actually support them? What kind of things have you seen with the people you've helped transition so far that have actually worked?
Well, basically, you know, there isn't really government support in place right now to help these farmers, and that's why there's a hesitancy to shift. So a big part of our work is lobbying for a shift in subsidies. So instead of subsidizing to produce livestock products, we're asking for some very specific things from the Scottish government. One is a stock-free transition fund so that farmers will be incentivized to shift to livestock-free agriculture, and then also a stock-free ecosystem restoration fund so that farmers will be funded to farm carbon capture, and also to make farmers and crofters priority recipients of the Tourist Recovery Task Force and the Rural Entrepreneurs Fund, because I think farmers and crofters are natural entrepreneurs, and they should be given the opportunity to boost rural economies by developing their skills in that area. So we're doing the lobbying. As far as funding goes, well, we have one farmer down south who we've been helping, Lawrence, and Lawrence is an organic beef and dairy farmer. He's currently in transition to veganic cereal growing. So basically, we've just been going along with Lawrence step by step and figuring out the way. And Lawrence is going to be the first UK farmer to certify with the Biocyclic Vegan Standard, which will provide him with a sort of a label in which he can market his final products, which means that consumers can know that what they're buying actually does line up with their values, the values of not wanting to exploit or harm any animals. So we've really been helping him develop that transition plan and find the Biocyclic Vegan Standard and go through the certification process, which he's doing.
Fantastic. We've got a question from Laura who's saying, have many farmers in Scotland expressed an interest in your scheme, in what you're doing? I guess, how can farmers get in touch with you if they are interested?
Yeah, absolutely. They have. We've had 4 farmers in Scotland contact us over the past few weeks asking for help. 2 of them have sheep. Actually, 3 of them have sheep and want to transition out of sheep. One of them, not a vegan, but was very concerned about the methane that the sheep are producing. So with her, we're helping to develop a transition plan, and we're looking at agroforestry, silvo-arable agroforestry, which is essentially alley cropping. And we've had Scottish Forestry out there. We've had a consultation from a freelance forester about how we can best set this up on their farm. So currently we're working within the subsidy system that we have and saying, okay, what money is out there right now? Because the subsidy system in Scotland is changing, and by 2024 we're going to have something new, and we don't know what that's going to be yet. And a lot of farmers have expressed concern about that. Farmers are basically waiting to see what the Scottish government is going to do. So in the meantime, we're saying, okay, there's money in agroforestry, we can get funding for this. So we're looking at an alley cropping scheme with them, rows of trees, basically, native broadleaf, and up to 20% of the trees can be fruit trees. So they're going to be producing a crop as well, and then growing crops in between the rows of trees. So yeah, we have had a lot of interest from Scottish farmers. And I think the survey has helped, because when we do the survey and we present these options, we ask them at the end, would you like further help and support or further information on the outline, on the things you've seen outlined in the video? And the majority of people have said, yes, I would. So that's put us in direct contact with these farmers who are looking for something different. So to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us through the website, which is farmersforstockfreefarming.org. We have a contact form there. Or you can email me. It's Rebecca@farmersforstockfreefarming.org, Rebecca@farmersforstockfreefarming.org. Please get in touch. As I say, we help you develop transition plans. We connect you with expert advice, and we look for funding for you, whether that's within the existing subsidy system or through grants that might be available.
Yeah, it's one of the really beautiful things I love, and it's one of the reasons I support the Vegan Organic Network so much. It's just being a bit of a lifeline for these farmers who maybe don't have anywhere else to go. So really loving what you're doing, Rebecca. It's so great. I remember hearing a statistic a little while ago. It was about the UK. It said the subsidies was something like 2 to 3 billion a year that meat and dairy farmers were getting. And if you could just imagine, everybody, what the world would be like if that 2 to 3 billion instead went to help everybody grow organic fruits and vegetables, and like how much healthier everyone would be, how much better it would be for the whole planet. It's not like a tremendously difficult thing that has to happen. It's literally somebody writing a different piece of paper, sending the money to a slightly different place, creating a fund for these farmers, and then that would be a great incentive. So anyone who's listening, if you know Boris Johnson, if you know any of those politicians, if you can lobby your local MPs, if you want to let these people know that the public are demanding that we change the way that we farm, because we have to think about our future, and the way we're doing it now is leading to a pretty scary place.
Yeah, exactly. Something like only 1% of present subsidies actually go to fruit and vegetable production. So there's a huge scope to fund that and expand that. You know, we do know, and this is a DEFRA study, that we do have enough arable land in the UK to provide for the nutritional, calorific, and protein needs for our entire population based on present arable land. You know, so the problem is, right now, over half of that arable land is being used to grow crops to feed livestock. So we need to get that land back and use it all for producing food for human consumption. And then if we did that, then the rough grazing and the permanent pasture could be given back to nature, you know, could be used for farming carbon capture. So that's our vision, really, is that we start growing more food for us and then help farmers to restore native ecosystems.
Yeah, I think it's really beautiful as well, encouraging farmers to think outside of the box, get more entrepreneurial. So one of the big projects I'm working on at the moment, we have around 4,000 people across a few different groups who are all vegan and looking to live in vegan eco-villages. And we're working with several different farmers who have land that they're using for pasture land, and it's not very profitable. And we're looking at how can we use that land for building some dwellings, and especially with what's happening with COVID and all of the stuff, travel restrictions. I think a lot more people are looking to travel in the UK. So I saw you had the piece about Airbnbs and glamping pods. It's really, really interesting. And I remember reading a case study about one farmer in America who started growing hemp, and they actually increased their revenue by 300% because of all the different uses that they could do with the hemp. And then in your video, you had the soft fruits. So any farmers who are watching, there are options, and Rebecca and her team are here to help. So please do reach out. Rebecca, I'd love for you just to share, since you've been doing this, some of your favorite experiences or interesting experiences that you've had on this journey so far.
Well, I've had some really heartwarming experiences, really, you know, going up north and going on different little crofts and farms and talking to people. And just one I remember was an old couple. You know, he was in his 80s, she was in her 70s, and they had cattle and sheep. And I was thinking, oh, great, you know, this survey is not going to go too well. And when I got to the last question and I was asking if they might be willing to give up livestock altogether, because they have, permanent pasture. The whole croft was permanent pasture. And I was so sure the lady was going to say no. And she said, well, yeah, of course I would. Why would I work this hard if I could get paid to do something that was easier? And so I think very much with farmers, they're looking to see what's going to happen with the subsidy system. If the government decides to subsidize this rather than that, then they will produce what they're paid basically to produce. And another question on the survey says, will you be willing to change your farming practice to meet changing consumer preferences? And that's really on the backdrop of the rise in veganism. And everybody said yes to that. They said, yeah, of course, that, the public is our customer. We'd be crazy not to produce what they demand. So, we're working on both ends. We've got to work on enlightening the consumer and also helping the producers to change as well. So that's been really encouraging. Another exciting project we're doing right now is the production of Lifu. And I think we chatted a bit about this before, Luke. This is basically producing high quality protein for human consumption from essentially grass and clover, which could change the face of British agriculture. Particularly in Scotland, one argument is, the only way we can make food from grassland is to graze that with cattle and sheep and then eat the cattle and sheep. And basically what Lifu production shows is that actually humans can eat grass, that we can eat clover, and it's a higher quality protein than animal products. So Lifu, which is leaf protein concentrate, which can be made from many different kinds of leaves. I've made it from nettles growing in my garden. You could make it, as I said, from clover and grass. The protein content comes out at around 48%. Versus beef, which is 31%. And also Lifu is packed with iron, beta carotene, vitamin A. It's got all the essential amino acids. So we've been doing a trial in conjunction with Scotland's Rural College of growing clover and grass on 3 of the farms that we're working with. We've harvested it, it's gone for testing, and we're currently applying for a DEFRA grant to scale this up. So that we can begin to produce plant protein from essentially pasture land, which is really exciting.
I love it. There's so many humans are so smart and creative when they have to be, but almost we kind of have to be pushed, right, in order to find these solutions. And when there's chaotic, crazy times like what's happened in the last couple of years, it really makes people dig deep and look at how we can change the planet. And I absolutely love that vegans can start eating grass. I think that's
we really need the stereotype then, don't we?
We're gonna get some great jokes on the back of that, aren't we?
Yeah.
There's loads of different options, isn't there, happening at the moment? And cell cultured meat, and there's other companies which obviously aren't vegan looking at using insects for protein, and that seems kind of crazy when we literally can do it from grass.
Yeah, when you can eat plants, why would you eat insects? That's my view on that. Yeah,
absolutely.
So exciting stuff. Yeah,
I have a friend who's been a raw vegan for 19 years, and he uses grass in his smoothies, in his juices in the morning, and he's used it to cure all sorts of amazing things, wild grass and foraging, getting those things. That it's a skill that a lot of people have lost touch with. And Giles, who commented earlier, his amazing wife Juliet, she's a forager, and she goes to her local forest and she picks so much food, makes forage stew, forage soup. I think it's a really exciting time for everyone. You don't have to necessarily go to the supermarkets and get all the super processed foods. And I think the more consumers change that, the more farmers are going to respond to that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've made Lifu from nettles in my garden. I made it from nettles, wild garlic, jack by the hedge. So if you are foraging for leaves, if you've got edible leaves, you can make leaf protein concentrate from those leaves. And then you can use it in casseroles, soups, smoothies, and it really gives a mega protein boost, as well as lots of other nutrients. So yeah. We've got an article about it on the website, and you can see a little video on how to make Lifu in your kitchen there. So I encourage you to do it. Yeah.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. We have a question from Laura saying, what kind of response have you had so far from the government?
Well, we had an interesting meeting. We've had a good response. About 3-4 weeks ago, we had a meeting with Marie Goujon's advisors. Marie Goujon is our Environment Rural Economies Minister up here. And it was a very positive meeting. We told them about the survey and they were really interested in the survey results. They basically want to know if farmers are willing to shift. And basically our answer up to right now is yes, they definitely are open and willing for change. And they also wanted to know about the public. Are the public, wanting and willing to move to a plant-based diet? And a study came out that I saw a few weeks ago that said something 90% of the public are in support of a government-driven campaign to promote the consumption and production of plant-based foods for climate change. So I think, the public know that they're supposed to be reducing the consumption of animal products. And, I also run Vegan Outreach Scotland, which has 1,600 members, and we do street outreach. And everybody knows. They say, yeah, well, I'm cutting down on meat. I know I need to cut out meat. My cousin, my sister, my friends are vegan. And that movement is really growing. And these are the growing number of consumers that farmers are going to have to change production for. So eventually it will meet in the middle, So it's exciting times.
Mm-hmm. There was a lovely statistic in your video saying that by the end of 2020, which is in just a couple of months, 12 million people in the UK. Oh, last year, of course. Yeah. So if that figure came true, then, more than 12 million people in the UK are probably meat-free now, which is like 1 in 5. So
they say it's gone up with COVID. Yeah, they say it's gone up with COVID. Yeah, we made the video last year, and then because of COVID, we were not able to get out there and go farm to farm. So now that we can, we're doing that, and it's very encouraging. Yeah. So the government is very interested. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've also seen a shift in my community of people wanting to shop more local and more organic and support smaller stores instead of big supermarkets. I even have lots of friends who blindly will refuse to go to big supermarkets, and they make an effort to go and support these local smaller farmers that are actually, taking more care in what they do. And they're even happy to pay a premium for that. And I get super inspired by this stuff. And there's so many documentaries coming out now. It's really easy, isn't it, to find this kind of information. And for any farmers who are watching, I think if you don't start the transition now, you're really going to get left behind, because exactly like the video said, the meat and dairy industries, they don't have very long left. Well, they're already loss-making businesses for most of the farmers, right?
Yeah, definitely change is happening. And in terms of, our second road to stock-free farming, which is restoring native trees and ecosystems, essentially rewilding, there's been a lot in the news about that lately, about companies wanting to invest in rewilding, and how, contrary to what we might think, rewilding and ecosystem restoration generates more green jobs than traditional farming. There's that example of, is it Nep Farm down in West Sussex, who rewilded their estate, and they've doubled the number of employees since they rewilded due to sort of ecotourism and ecological work. So there's a lot of green jobs to be had when we go back to nature and rewild our native ecosystems. So
yeah, I was just recently at a farm. The farmer has around 100 acres, and he's desperate for farm hands. He's desperate for people who can help him. He says like 5 to 10 tons of food on his trees go to waste every year because there's no pickers. Because if there were subsidies to pay people to pick, right, and we would have so much food. And I really think anybody who is tuned in, if you're like looking for something to get involved in and this is exciting for you, we can really put some positive pressure on the people who make these decisions. And one of the reasons we're doing this interview right now is because of the COP26. And I know the Vegan Organic Network have been there making a big presence, raising awareness. And if you could leave a message to these politicians, to Boris Johnson and Nicola Sturgeon and anyone else, if they were to listen to this, Rebecca, what would you want to say to them?
I would want to say, stop being scared. I think politicians are scared. to make a bold change, and I think the public are ready for change. And what the survey's telling us is farmers are ready and willing to change too. But I think the government is scared to say, okay, folks, we've got to shift to more plant-based diets, and we're going to subsidize things in that direction so that people who maybe struggle to afford to buy quality fruit and veg, we're going to make that possible for low-income people, and we're going to subsidize and incentivize farmers to make these shifts. And then we're going to use our rough grazing land and our permanent pasture, we're going to reforest that, and we're going to restore peat bogs. So I think politicians just have to sort of bite the bullet and be strong and make a good decision. And, I think with COVID, the government's had no problem telling us what to do, and people have done it. So why not with our food? Because it's a direction that would make us healthier too, that we would be better off if we ate plant-based diets. It would take this burden off the NHS as well. So it'd be a win all around. It'd be a win for biodiversity. It'd be a win for climate change, for our food security, for our food self-sufficiency, for public health, and of course for the animals. That's one thing with the survey. Another thing that's come out of it is farmers don't feel great about sending their animals to slaughter. I was on one farm up in the Highlands, and she asked me about my personal motivation. And I said, well, for me, I cannot ethically justify taking a life unnecessarily, because it's not necessary for us to eat animal products to be happy and healthy. Then I cannot do that, and I cannot pay for someone else to do that on my behalf. And I was telling her that I used to work on my uncle's sheep farm, and that when the lambs went away for slaughter every year, my auntie would cry. And at that point, I was a teenager. I hadn't woken up, hadn't made the connection, but my auntie would get upset. And I told that story to this farmer up in the Highlands just a couple of weeks ago, and she said to me, I know, I hate it. And I think many farmers do, but once again, they're trapped in this subsidy system. She's got the hill sheep support scheme, which is paying her for each sheep, or she's got the suckler beef support scheme, which is paying her to produce beef. And so we need a massive shift in subsidies. And that's going to take bold action on the part of the government. So I would say to the government, get brave, please get brave.
Absolutely. And it's a very similar story with Jay from the documentary 73 Cows. He just had a breakdown when he took his cows to slaughter one day, and that was it. Enough is enough. And he turned his farm into a sanctuary, and now he has the cows there living out the rest of their lives in peace, and they don't have to worry anymore. And I saw another similar one in America. A farmer did the same. He turned his farm into an animal sanctuary. And I think that was really, really beautiful. So there's lots of different ways. What would you say to the farmers who are listening, Rebecca? If any of them are tuning in now and they're sitting on the fence or they're curious, what do you want to say to them straight from your heart to theirs?
Well, I would want to say that I know you will be the people who will always produce our food. And we respect and value you for that. And we want to help and support you in your work, because you'll always be the people who produce our food. And we realize that, turning your farm into a sanctuary is a nice story, but that's completely unrealistic for most farmers. That's like saying to a farmer, you're going to give up 2 years of salary and send your animals to a sanctuary. So for most farmers, that's not an option. Maybe they have a big mortgage to pay. They have loans on equipment, slurry store, machinery. So we want to help them gradually to wind down this herd and transition to doing something different, something that brings them in even better income and maybe a healthier lifestyle and a better sleep when they go to bed at night, to give them a better way that they are happy with, and that feeds the world as well.
Absolutely. One of my amazing friends started a group where he gets people to go to local farmers markets and actually meet farmers. And I thought that was a really beautiful thing to do, because anyone who's tuning in here, you could go to your farmers markets, meet these farmers, start having these conversations and just let them know about these things. There's so many different ways we can do activism, and I know you said you go and you do the outreach as well, and I've done that, and changing things on an individual basis is great. And I think if a lot of people do that, then the consumer demand will keep going up, and that's fantastic. I think a lot of people could go and directly speak with the farmers, or if you have friends who are farmers, maybe send them this interview, maybe just pass them the link or go and watch it with them. And you never know, just plant the seeds, right? Just drop the seeds in and see. And because if they are struggling, we want to help them as well.
Exactly. And you've got to educate yourself a little bit about farming. I think there's a big gap right now between farmers and vegans, and that's probably a little bit of the fault of both sides and a lot of misunderstanding. And part of why I started Farmers Stock-Free Farming is I wanted to heal that gap. Having a bit of a farming background, I maybe understand a bit of the other side, and you've got to go in with this sensitivity and this understanding of and the acknowledgement that I wasn't born vegan. My granddad was a butcher. We ate meat 3 times a day. I didn't make that connection for a long time. So you've got to go in with sensitivity and not just think farmers can do a different job or send their cows to a sanctuary. They're trying to make a living like the rest of us. And that needs to be acknowledged in a very sensitive way, as opposed to criticizing or, saying, oh, you're hurting animals, because you've got to go about it in the right way.
Yeah, my mum and dad worked in a chicken factory where they call it processing, but basically means killing and packaging them up. And so now I'm an animal rights activist and obviously doing this kind of work. So I think there's a part, if anyone believes in karma, we're here to like break these ancestral chains and change things up. And there's so many people on the planet now, it feels like, who are connected in their hearts, who are really wanting to do great things for the planet, who care deeply about animals. And it fills me with so much hope to see all of those people. For anyone who would like to help your organization, Rebecca, what kind of things are you looking for? Can they get involved? How can we support you more?
Definitely. Well, on our website, farmersstockfreefarming.org, there is a join button, and joining is quite important because, the government always want to know how many members do you have, how many people are wanting to do this, how many votes can we potentially get if we promote this. So I think joining is important. We have a donate button, and donations will help us to further our work, to do more surveys, to do more research, to help farmers transition. Currently, there isn't a lot of government funding. In fact, there's virtually none to help farmers transition. So that's really important. We can always accept volunteers. We're quite a small team right now. So volunteers to do anything from, applying for grants or helping research opportunities. We can, definitely take all the help we can get.
Amazing. And anyone who is tuning in as well, make sure to go to the Vegan Organic Network website and subscribe to the Vegan Organic Network, because the brilliant work that they do, and they have a magazine that they send out to you. It's absolutely brilliant. So if you are, like Rebecca said, you want to get more educated on these things, it's a great place to start. And you can also go to their Vegan Organic Network's YouTube channel. They've got loads of documentaries that show you how the stock-free farming works, and interviews with farmers who are actually doing it successfully. And once I watched those videos, and I was like, whoa, it's actually not that difficult to do stock-free farming. It does take some changes and shifts from the usual way, but it just seems to make the most sense to me. So I really encourage everyone who's tuning in to go and do that. And if you have any more questions for Rebecca, do let us know in the chat. Rebecca, I guess we're coming up towards the end of the interview now. So is there anything else you'd like to say to everyone who is tuning in? Anything that you think is really important you want to share?
I think, we've got a real window of opportunity right now, both in Scotland and in England. In England, the subsidy system is changing towards this environmental land management scheme, which is based on public funding for 6 public goods. And those 6 public goods are all things that are naturally generated by veganic farming, by stock-free organic farming. It's clean air, clean and plentiful water, abundant plants and wildlife, reduction and mitigation to climate change, engagement with nature. All these 6 public goods that we're going to be paid to produce are all natural byproducts of organic farming. So there's a real opportunity there to shift, and farmers are going to be looking at that. So we've got an opportunity here to speak to farmers about this. And in Scotland, similarly, we've got this window of opportunity because the subsidy system is changing. So now is the time to get our voice heard and to reach out to farmers about this as well. So it's an exciting time.
It's a really exciting time. And one of the things I love helping people to do, I founded a public speaking academy where I taught people how to do activism through videos and by creating events and speaking their truth. And I think this is one of the really important things for everyone who's tuning in. Never underestimate the power of you just having a conversation with someone. And if you are brave enough and courageous enough to make some videos and share them online, you could reach thousands or even millions of people. And all the filmmakers right now and the creatives, I've got loads of friends who are amazing vegan musicians as well. And the songs and the music they produce, it changes people. And I think everybody, we can do this. We are doing this. You can see from the numbers every single year, the amount of people who are embracing veganism and embracing this kind of way of living. It's going up and up and up. And I'm hopeful for the future. I think we're going to turn this around. Love's going to win. We're going to, the planet is going to thrive. And I have a little daughter who's 15 months old. So a big motivation for me is thinking, what's the world going to be like when she's 20? Mm-hmm. Like, what can we do? And since she's been born, I've had extra energy to do that. So anyone who's tuning in as well, if you have young people in your life, I would say, get them involved. There's a farm I went to recently where they do education programs where they take city kids to a farm and show them how the orchards work and show them how they grow the vegetables, and get your kids involved in that kind of thing as well. There's so many different options. And that is another way that farmers could diversify their lands, right?
Yeah, actually, we've got one up here in Aberdeenshire who is doing educational activities outdoors. She's diversified into that, and she just had a fundraiser quite recently to raise more money, doing sort of nature tracking with children and identifying plants and leaves, foraging, and outdoor activities. So she's already diversified into that, which is great. Plus she's doing Airbnb, plus she's growing food for human consumption. So she's doing all three of our roads to stock-free farming, making the best of what she's got to survive in the world, which is really fantastic, and benefiting other people at the same time.
Absolutely. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in for this. Please do share it with anybody who you think might find this useful. Go and join the website at Farmers for Stock-Free Farming. Go and give them your support. Make sure to subscribe to the Vegan Organic Network as well and check out all the amazing things that they're doing. Sending you all so much love. Thank you for tuning in, giving us your love and attention. We have Bernie saying, thanking the Vegan Organic Network for a most inspiring video. We are building a vegan world, and I just subscribed. That's amazing. And John says, can you come and help us in Wales? Do you have the ability to help farmers in Wales at the moment?
We actually have a team member down in, he's not in Wales, but he's on the border of Buckinghamshire. I might be wrong about that, in Oxfordshire. So he's down south. So we definitely have a team member down there who could help. Yeah,
fantastic. Definitely. So John, get in touch through the website. We'd love to find out how we can support you. Rebecca, thank you for everything that you're doing. Good luck fighting the good fight. And and yeah, keep it up. It's really amazing what you're doing.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure.
Many thanks to our panel and to you for watching. Please support and join us on our veganic mission to be part of a worldwide movement for a peaceful, just world where agriculture is earth, animal and human friendly.